Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of This Week in San Diego Soccer History. I'm John Cross, along with Dylan Wilson, and tonight we'll be doing part two of our San Diego Jaws series, where we're looking at the 1976 season of the NASL's San Diego Jaws. And along the way, we will also do a couple of snapshots looking back to this week in 1976 and this week in 2001. And we'll throw in some trivia questions as well along the way. But before we do that, Dylan, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing all right. It's been a little hot in the last few days in my apartment. We do have like a one like roller AC we finally caved and bought, but it's just very poor airflow. We only have one window that isn't east facing, so there's just not a lot of cross flow, and it gets brutal. It gets brutal when it's hot. So, yeah, it's been a little rough, heat wise.
Yeah, it's been very hot. I don't know. It was over 100 here at my house, and fortunately, have a good AC unit. Um, and probably even better, have solar and battery backup, so don't have to be paying the expensive rates here
Nice.
at this time of the evening when you're trying to run the air conditioning and we're at the high price rates. So very fortunate for that. All right. Should we jump right into it and get the answer to our trivia question that we left off with last week? So let's go ahead and get
Sure.
that up on the screen here. So last week's trivia question was this: after the WUSA folded in 2003, the San Diego Spirit player switched sports from soccer to two-person bobsled and earned a bronze medal at the 2006 Winter Games in Turin, Italy. Can you name the player? All right, Dylan. I don't know if you looked at the answer or not. Did you go and look between episodes to see who the player was?
I did not, but I did. That was the first Winter Olympics I was really old enough to pay any serious attention to. So um, I probably watched that. I remember watching a lot of bobsled, but no, I didn't remember the name at all.
Yeah, the name of the player, we'll get it here up on the screen, Shauna Robach. Um, she, I believe, if I remember correctly, actually started doing bobsled while she was still playing with the San Diego Spirit. Um, just kind of did it as an off season kind of thing to do. Um, and then, not only did she win a bronze medal in the Winter Games in Turin, Italy in 2006, she also several other medals. Um, I think like she medaled in three consecutive winter championships that they had for two-person bobsled.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a pretty robust. Well, I don't know if it's fully professional, but a pretty robust competitive circuit in some parts of the world. So
Yeah, and that was you know good on her. But that's a little interesting bit of trivia. There are, I think we mentioned it maybe at the end of last show. There are a couple other Spirit players that once they left playing for the San Diego Spirit, they went on to do other sport things because at the time that was the top women's league and it was just gone. And it would be, you know, a few years before the next professional league tried to start up, and then a few more years till we actually got to the NWSL, which we have right now. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some birthdays. We actually, as we're building our database as we get going here with the San Diego Soccer History Society, we're starting to get more things plugged in. So when we have our shows, we can call up some of these things. So some birthdays to look at this week. First, a couple from yesterday. So on the March 16th, Adolfo Sanchez, who was the goalkeeper for the San Diego Toros, the very first entry for a San Diego team in the NASL back in 1968. He was their goalkeeper. And then Derek Armstrong, the longtime San Diego coaching legend, especially with the Loya Nomads, but also coached at UCSD and won some national titles on the men's side over there. So happy birthday to both of them. We also, coming up tomorrow, have Jovan Karofsky. It's his birthday, March 18th. San Pasqual High School graduate, also played for the Nomads. Also led San Pasqual to a soccer championship as a sophomore. Went on to play for the national team among a bunch of other things. And I don't know if you saw it in our rundown. I saved this especially for you. That at 14, his parents took him to Europe, and he had a trial with Hajduk Split. But because of the situation going on in the region back in, I don't know what this, early 90s, very early 90s, they decided against having him stay there and going on trial for a longer period of time. But Jovan Karofsky, that's his birthday. And then end of this week on Sunday, Alejandro Guido has a birthday. So modern day graduate down Chula Vista, Cholos player, SD Loyal player, and I think right now currently coaching with LAFC's academy.
Is it LAFC? I know he was doing like a player coach sort of deal with FC Cincinnati 2, I think it was. But that was a few years back, and I haven't really kept up.
Yeah, I think last month he just moved over
to
LAFC on that. But he was at FC Cincinnati as well.
Good for him. I know that's kind of probably a nice full circle moment for him. He probably knows some people there still. So,
yeah. So good. Happy birthdays all around to those people. And again, as we're building out our database here, if you know of any birthdays we have missed this week, please drop us a note so we can add them in and get to them, especially next year. Or any birthdays that are coming up, please be sure to drop us a note so we can make sure we mention those on the air.
I did want to say real quick, yes. Sorry, I have never heard of Jovan Karofsky before, but I did just kind of look him up after looking this up, or looking at the running order for this week. And that was pretty interesting, the note you had about Hajduk Split and the trial, and also I think is an understatement to say the situation in the Balkans in the early 90s, but that's not what this podcast is about. However, I did want to say that the story of Hajduk Split in that time, and really the whole kind of like Yugoslav era, is like really fascinating. And I don't, we're not going to get into this podcast, but I have a particular passion for the city of Split. I've been there twice, and I find it to be one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. But I do want to recommend real quick, and maybe, John, we can put this in the running order. There is a Substack writer. The title of the Substack is Outside Right, WRITE. And he does some real interesting stuff. And he had a whole piece about the history of Hajduk Split and their supporters group, Torcida, which we probably have talked about before because they're the first real European hooligans. But anyway, I wanted to just give that quick plug because it was a multi-piece series he did, like a podcast and articles about that history. And I thought it was really interesting. So.
Yeah, I agree. Great one to follow. I believe the person's name is Chris Lee.
That's it. Yes, I couldn't remember his name
as well. And yeah, he's a good person to follow. He's on Blue Sky, but he does a lot of soccer history and ground hopping. Ground hopping specifically to go and look at historical places and events and then tell about the history of the places he's gone to, rather than just going to watch a game. So yeah, great follow if you get a chance, especially if you enjoy football history. All right, so let's now switch gears to kind of current events and looking at who's making history now. Dylan, do you have anybody you want to lead off with or shout out in terms of
what I saw? Well, I mean, I know this is in the running order already, so I guess this is a nice, easy transition for you. But yeah, Wave made a nice big statement signing this week. Katerina Macario,
sure,
and a big long contract, 5-year deal. I see noted guaranteed. I don't know, what. I know they changed or allowed some sort of exceptions in the salary cap rules in NWSL this year, but I gotta think $8 million over 5 years has got to be one of the biggest contracts in NWSL history, at least thus far.
It is, as what I read, it is the largest contract in terms of overall value. I
Yeah.
don't know if
Well,
it's
and there you go.
necessarily the most per year. That still might be Trinity Rodman, but overall value, because like you said, it's a 5-year contract. And with that new high impact player as their
That's what it's called,
designation
right?
that they've
Right.
used in the NWSL, but that was used. Um, so yeah, this will be huge because I mean I think there's been quite a few reports for the Wave, how their attendance dropped after Alex Morgan left. So quite a bit. I mean, I found some that said it dropped roughly 26% the next season after Alex Morgan left. So big name signing, and not just a big name signing. The whole reason we're talking about is not just the Wave making the signing, but Catarina Macario is a local high school graduate. Yes, she's Brazilian born, moved here to San Diego when she was 11 or 12. I can't remember the exact age, but went to school at Torrey Pines High School, played for Surf. So this is a little bit of coming home for her, at least her second home. So super excited to see how this plays out for the Wave and the long-term career for Catarina Macario, especially being a 5-year deal. That's a long soccer contract.
Yeah, I agreed, and especially in NWSL, I think, which tends to, for most players, be more or less like year to year, 2-year type deals, unless I'm mistaken. So, yeah, huge deal, and like you said, hopefully we'll kind of get butts in seats again. You would hope that the team can kind of get to a point where they don't need to like. Well, I don't know. It's not necessarily a comment on the team or the fans, but you would hope that like the team has that base of support enough when they don't have a superstar necessarily, if they're still competitive, and that's obviously not really been the case thus far. Alex Morgan retired, and the team wasn't terribly. I think they scraped into the playoffs last season, but got knocked out in the first round, something like that. So it's
Yeah.
it's great, and I hope over the next 5 years they can really cement themselves as like the talent around her to be a very competitive team. That even if this team deal expires and she leaves, they can still be a competitive team even without maybe that superstar name.
Right. Right. Yeah. So exciting things coming for the Wave. I haven't heard. Maybe you have. When she's supposed to be available to play? Do you know if it's at the end of the Chelsea season? But
I
I
have
thought
no
there was
idea,
a
to be
higher
honest with
transfer
you.
fee paid to get her to come early, but I haven't seen a date of when she's supposed to be available or when her first match
No,
will be.
I
All right. Well, the next, I guess, setting records person is not really a person, which is usually what we highlight in this section. But I'm going to throw out Snapdragon Stadium because we just got word for the LA Olympics. They've announced their soccer schedule and where matches are going to be played, and I think, always had an idea that Snapdragon Stadium could get some matches. But I was surprised to see this week that there will be 11 Olympic matches at Snapdragon Stadium for the LA Summer Olympics in 2008.
did see that. That's pretty cool, and I think that includes the bronze medal match, right? If I saw that correctly.
I didn't see all the matches. That's what I didn't catch. So I was hoping you had that information, as
I
we
don't
didn't see
have
that they were
all of the
having.
games off the top of my head, but yes, I believe the bronze medal match is the most significant. So you figure maybe a semifinal match in there as well. Again, I haven't looked too far into it, but I did see somebody mention that. Let me see if I can pull it up.
All right,
But yeah,
yeah,
so
that will be.
it's the most used venue, right? So that's pretty cool. That means they see something in it.
Yeah, will be exciting to have some local matches. I really hope we'll have to see how the World Cup goes this summer, but I really hope there's a new soccer tournament I can actually look forward to. Um, and but we'll see what happens in a couple of years.
Oh yeah,
Hopefully
here you
some
go.
better soccer news.
It'll include women's group stage games, the women's quarterfinal on the 21st of July, the men's and women's semifinals on the 24th and 25th of July, and the bronze medal matches for men and women on the 27th and 28th of July. So that, I mean, right there is, 6 pretty significant games.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm super, like I said, super excited about that. And
My favorite,
that'll be
somebody I saw, kind of in a snide, joking way, who I won't name, said, what are we, some kind of soccer city? And it's one of those jokes you can't help but, like, if you don't laugh, you'll just cry.
yeah. Yeah. True. Yeah, we'll have to do some coverage of that at some point, but not on today's pod.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on from Snapdragon, a final shout out, because we have the CIF state playoffs have finished. It was the first year again that California did actual state playoffs, and we crowned a state champion. We had one San Diego team in Division 5 girls. That was Coastal Academy. That made it all the way to the finals of the state competition, but they ended up losing. In fact, I didn't go back and look at Saturday's matches, but based on Friday's matches, it was quite the domination by the Northern California high schools over the Southern California high schools. Don't know what that means, if that's just indicative of the play of soccer at that level or just this year, but I'm sure it'll be one of those arguing points between Northern California and Southern California moving forward.
I don't know.
We have true state champions.
I don't know a whole lot about the state high school soccer landscape, like, at all. But I can tell you that in and around the Bay Area, there are a lot of private schools that, like, actively recruit players from the greater region. Like,
Right.
I grew up in kind of the greater catchment area of De La Salle High School. Not that I got recruited, but I knew people who, like, for baseball and football, ended up, like, leaving our school after the first or second year and going to De La Salle because that was, the place they knew they could maybe get a scholarship. And so
Right.
and I'm not saying that doesn't happen in Southern California, and I have no idea that it happens in soccer, but I would have to assume that it does. So maybe there's something to that NorCal dominance there, because I know that exists in a very real way up there at high school sports.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that over the years and see how that plays out. But good to see the state of California actually getting to the point where and having soccer as a state championship. The problem has always been, and I don't know how they're doing it for the winter and spring sports, is soccer in a lot of California is a winter sport, but not everywhere. Some parts of California play it in the fall and some parts play it in the spring. So all 3 seasons soccer is being played. So that was always the big hurdle or always the reason why CIF said, well, we're not even going to bother trying to do a state soccer playoff. So I'm glad, at least for the winter sports season, they have chosen to do that, and we now have new state champions. All right, the last kind of looking at people making history and setting records that I want to do from this last week is Jordan Chavez. That name might be familiar. He also went to Mater Dei High School. He played for the Loyal at one point in time. I think it was the very first season, if I remember. Played a little at Chula Vista FC, but he was nearly a last-minute call-up to go to the new iteration of the Cosmos, and actually started in their opener against Portland Hearts of Pine in a 3-1 loss. But we have our new incarnation of the Cosmos, and we have a San Diegan who was in the starting lineup, starting in defense for the Cosmos in USL 1.
Speaking of Portland Hearts of Pine, I did
not see the game.
No, I'm not. Well, I did. They have played today in the Open Cup. That's actually not what I was going to say, though. But I think that's just cool that I don't know. I've always thought of them as kind of a mirror, because they're like the exact opposite corner of the country from San Diego, right? But it seems like they did a lot of the same kind of. They took a lot of the similar approach that the people behind SD Loyal took, like really kind of building it from the ground up within the community, and it seems to have yielded like really positive results. And I really do want to get out there. I met a couple guys who worked in the front office for Portland Hearts of Pine probably last year at the SDFC home opener, I think. I was out at the tailgate and I was just chatting with people. I don't remember if that was it or not, but anyway, they were super cool and they were really excited, and they had talked about how San Diego Loyal was like kind of something they wanted to take, you know, cues from, rather, excuse me. And so that's cool that Jordan Chavez has kind of found his way there, or not playing against or for them, but like, you know, I don't know. I'm drawing a tenuous arc here, but anyway.
Yeah, it is. I agree with you for Portland Hearts of Pine. Love what they're doing out there. And who knows, we might see some San Diegans make their way, as you said, to the opposite corner of the continental U.S. To play for them at some point here in the near future.
It goes to show the depth of the soccer community, you know?
Yeah, I think that captures at least all that I had noted. Is there anything else you wanted to highlight of people making history or setting records here from San Diego this week?
No, I don't. I don't think so.
All right, well, let's jump in then to our first trivia question. Go ahead and get it up here. So here is the first question for this episode. What San Diegan was the first American-born player to sign with Manchester United back in 1992? All right, we won't do an answer yet, as we usually do. We'll do that answer after we do our first history snapshot. But we'll let people ponder that. It was, the first American-born player ever signed by Manchester United back in '92. So this is when Manchester United was the dominant team over in the Premier League, especially over a course of years there. They're not terrible now, but they're not of the same stature right now as they were back in '92. And I remember this. This was big news at the time. All right. While we let people think of that, let's go ahead and jump into our first history snapshot. So we're going to do this one for Monday, March 15th through Sunday, March 21st of 1976. Sorry. Okay. For a little cultural context, David Bowie has just starred in what is now a cult classic, The Man Who Fell to Earth. Weird Al makes his musical debut on the Dr. Demento radio show, and Queen brought its A Night at the Opera tour to the San Diego Sports Arena. And this is what was happening in San Diego soccer. The week opened with San Diego Jaws representatives attending a board meeting of the newly formed San Diego County Youth Soccer Association. The Jaws general manager, Paul Deese, showed the 25-minute film titled Pele's New World, which has been very recently produced by Warner Brothers to promote the league. And it is said that Deese brought this to all his meetings to help promote the NASL and the new San Diego Jaws team. Around other youth news, the Solana Beach 9 and 10-year-olds, they will meet the La Jolla Aztecs at Central School in Lacadia for the final 8 of the brand new Cal South State Cup. And in a slightly older age group, although I don't know what the age actually is because I couldn't find it from the reports, the Chargers team from the South Bay just claimed their 3rd straight county title by beating the Solana Beach Broncos 10-4. In professional news, the San Jose Earthquakes are hosting the Western Regional NASL Indoor Tournament on Friday and Saturday of the week at the Cow Palace. It's the second year of the NASL tournament. Even though the league remained at 20 teams, only 12 teams participated in the 1976 tournament compared to 20 from only 12 teams competed in the 1976 tournament compared to 16 in the 1975 tournament. San Jose is joined by Dallas, San Diego, and Vancouver in the West Regional bracket. And to ensure the tournament can finish over just the 2 days they have, each team only plays 2 games. So in the first game for the Jaws, they lose 5-2 to Dallas, and in the second game, they lose 8-4 to San Jose, who are the eventual winners of the tournament. Even though San Diego lost those 2 games, the Jaws come in third place over Vancouver based on goal differential. And their newly acquired Jaws player, American Archie Robustuf, is named to the all-regional team. And that is your San Diego Soccer History Snapshot for Monday, March 15th through Sunday, March 22nd, 1976. All right, Dylan, anything stand out to you from that snapshot from 50 years ago this week?
No. Excuse me. I think it's pretty cool that the NASL did the indoor tournament. I guess I had never really put together that the soccer's kind of come from that sort of historically. I had never really put that much thought into it, I guess. So that's on me. But yeah, too bad they didn't. The Jaws didn't do better. But it's cool that the NASL was kind of reaching out, trying different things, and I wish, I don't know, I wish more leagues would do things like that still.
Yeah, it was, I mean, they had done some indoor arena, NASL, and teams just individually and during the off season, and they were usually very big draws. So the league decided to do the tournament, their first official tournament in 75. Then in 76, there were 476. There were some owners that wanted to do more of a league, have it run for longer, and then roll into the outdoor season. But not all the owners could get on board behind that. And, you know, this is, I think, when you go into soccer and leagues and in the United States and you look at ownership groups, there were, you know, different groups have different motivations. Some just want to do the summer season. Some may not have a facility to do indoor. And one of the problems is you're basically running 2 different teams, because a lot of the players at this time who are playing in the NASL, the ones that are coming over from Europe at least, are coming over on work visas that are only 6-month visas. That's why the NASL season runs less than 6 months, you know, just under. That allows the players to come in, start playing, finish up, and get back to their teams in Europe before the next season starts. You know, so they get released sometime in August to get back to their other teams, mostly in England, but there were some players playing from some teams that were in some other parts of Europe as well. So that was it. It wouldn't be for, I don't know how many years, but fairly soon coming up here in the 70s, the NASL will start their own indoor league, and so will the major indoor soccer league, as they see the potential start up to actually get a league going and make use of arenas in the winter time. And I think it's the age-old story for
Always about the money,
especially in the U.S. It's, I have an arena, I don't have as many events in the winter, because concerts tend to, even though they might be indoor, tend to be more of a summer type activity for people to do. So they want to find things that they can fill their arenas on open dates in the wintertime. So that also becomes an impetus to push the indoor game forward. And we'll explore a lot of that over, I imagine, the next several years as we look into formation of the Soccers and how they bounced around between the NASL and the MISL. But we'll get to all of that in due time here. All right, any other thoughts or comments about that snapshot from 1976?
Not, I don't think. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, let's go back to our trivia question that we had. from before the segment, and it was what San Diegan was the first American-born player to sign with Manchester United back in 1992. All right, so I know you have access to the answers here, but did you know the answer for this one, Dylan? Oh, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I was having a cough.
Yeah.
No, I did not. I had never heard of this person prior to this.
Okay, well, you had a hint in the birthday section. The answer to this question is Jovan Karofsky, person we mentioned who has a birthday tomorrow. He was the first American-born player to ever be signed by Manchester United. And again, that was back in 1992 as he was still a teenager. I believe he left before he finished high school over at San Pasqual, left to go over to their academy. All right. With that, let's jump into our second trivia segment. And we're going to do, second snapshot segment. So we're going to do a snapshot back to 2001 and look at the week from Monday, March 15th through Sunday, March 21st, 1976. Sorry, did that wrong. That should be we're going to look at 2001. See if we can try this again. Got my notes all messed up here. We are going to look at the week of March 12th through March 18th, 2001. So 25 years ago. All right, for a little cultural context here, Shaggy is topping the charts with his #1 hit, Angel. March Madness comes to SDSU for the first time as San Diego hosts rounds 1 and 2 of the NCAA men's basketball tournament, with games held at Cox Arena over an Aztec Bowl. And the Padres are looking to sign 42-year-old Ricky Henderson to a 1-year contract for the upcoming Major League Baseball season, and they have him in spring training to evaluate whether or not they will sign him to that deal. Spoiler, they do sign him to that deal. All right, and this is what was happening in San Diego soccer. In youth soccer, it was an all-San Diego affair at the State Cup in San Bernardino for the under-12 and under-13 divisions on the boys' side. In the under-12s, the Surf White boys won the State Cup with a 3-0 win over the Leucadia Lightning. In the under-13 boys, the Surf White boys under-13 team beat the La Jolla Nomads 2-1. Both of those teams now advanced to the Western Regionals in June in Albuquerque, New Mexico, as part of the Snickers National Cup tournament. In high school soccer, the final CIF San Diego section sports writers/coaches poll is out. I won't go through all the top 10s, but on the boys' side, Valhalla, Granite Hills, and San Pasqual top 3 spots on the boys' side, and on the girls, it's La Costa Canyon, Torrey Pines, and Poway. Also, CIS has announced, in an effort to prevent high school coaches from forcing players to concentrate on a single sport year-round and thus encourage more multi-sport high school athletes, CIF is proposing a ban on high school coaches and preventing them from interacting with their high school athletes outside of the high school season. And this is going to have a huge effect, mostly on soccer and volleyball, for those two sports. For soccer, this move may cost several of the local coaches their job, because they also coach club teams in the same gender and age groups. And those club coaches say if they have to choose, they're going to pick their club over their high school. In professional news, we have no updates for the San Diego Flash for this week, but the Spirit get to their first win of the preseason as Julie Foudy, Shannon McMillan, and Mercy Akide score goals as they defeat Beijing FC 3-0 at the Arc Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista. Shannon McMillan now has scored in each of the preseason matches. And that's your San Diego soccer history snapshot for Monday, March 12th, 2001 through Sunday, March 18th, 2001. All right, Dylan, what stood out to you from that snapshot?
Um, I wouldn't say anything in particular, to be honest. I guess the music. It's starting to get to the point here in 2001 where I remember these things, so it's making me feel a little
Feel
old.
old?
And I guess too, I would say Ricky Henderson is probably the greatest Oakland athletic of all time. Not the best player to wear the uniform necessarily. I think a lot of people would say Reggie Jackson, but he was born and raised in Oakland, spent, his formative years playing at Bushrod Park. Like he is Oakland through and through, and I'm, not going to get into the whole Oakland A's thing. However, I always forget he did briefly play for the Padres. So that was a fun little trip down memory lane.
He did briefly play for the Padres, yes. Um, yeah, and for me, that section, because I was coaching high school at that time, as we mentioned, I think on the last podcast, and I remember these conversations um, and people wondering because we had a lot of great coaches coaching boys and girls high school soccer that were also coaching club soccer, and if this were to pass, and it did end up passing, um, it was going to have a drastic effect on the high school sports because those, if you, I mean, it wouldn't make a difference. And we saw some coaches do this. They chose to coach in high school, maybe the opposite gender of what they coached in club, to allow them, to keep doing both things. But the money is where the club soccer is for a lot of those coaches, and they were, again, because of our pay to play system, a lot of them were full-time coaches. That was their job with their club team. But it was sad for the high school teams that they ended up losing a lot of good coaches and coaching staffs when this eventually did get enacted, which I think was for the very next school year. Is when it got enacted. But it did have a kind of a ripple effect for high school and the quality of coaching at the high school level. All right. That gets us through our second history snapshot. So let's go ahead and do our second trivia question here. All right. For our second trivia question, this future star of the San Diego Sockers was the leading goal scorer in the 1976 NASL Indoor Soccer Tournament. Name the player. So again, we'll leave it. We'll get the answer to that after we do our part 2 of the San Diego Jaws series. But Dylan, and I know, again, we always say this, you have access to the answers on the rundowns, but did you have any idea who this might be?
No, I did not.
Yeah. Okay. We will get to it again after our San Diego Jaws segment. But let's go ahead and jump into that now. And then Dylan, feel free to jump in at any time for this as we go through this main segment here. So in part 1, we really did the backstory. We know what happened with the NASL, up through 1975. What happened in the 1975 season, all the highs they had, especially the signing of Pele in June of 75, and the fact that the NASL made money on their soccer bowl. It was the first time they called it the Soccer Bowl in 75. And it was hosted in San Jose at Spartan Stadium in 75. These all will be important to our conversation moving forward here for the San Diego Jaws. And we left it with the sale. So at the league meetings in October, they approved the sale of the Baltimore Comets to an ownership group headed by Ken Keegan, and they were going to move the team to San Diego and rebrand as the San Diego Jaws. Okay, so we're going to pick it up here with that and kind of building a franchise, for the San Diego Jaws, what they had to do to get ready for this upcoming season, bringing an NASL team back to San Diego because there hasn't been one since 1968. and how they went about it. And I think there's some, again, as always, some interesting parallels we can draw from then to today. So let's first look at the owner. The owner was Ken Keegan. He's from Los Gatos. He made his money from car dealerships. He was part owner of the San Jose Earthquakes, so that got him his taste for soccer. Now, San Jose came into the league, I believe, in '74. And in those first 2 years, they were, if not at the top, right near the top of attendance. Their average attendance was, 16, 17, 18,000 people, which was great because if you remember from part one, we talked about the average attendance for the Baltimore Comets being under 3,000 people. So San Jose is doing really well. There's a couple of things we'll get into in a second, but this is where Ken Keegan is coming from. And Pele has been signed, and he thinks, like a lot of people do think in the mid 70s here, that soccer has finally landed. Like this is going to be the next big thing. Because people see the change that's happening in youth soccer, how it's just growing by leaps and bounds year after year. And people are playing soccer and not playing some of the other more traditional American sports. So again, everybody thinks soccer has landed. So Ken Keegan, and just to go back to San Jose for a second, the San Jose attendance, I think, this is my take on it, is slightly misleading in terms of the broader picture of NASL, because it wasn't the NASL and soccer necessarily. It was the fact to me that San Jose got their own team, because that team was originally supposed to be in San Francisco, and they were having trouble selling season tickets because of the competition from other teams, and I think also finding a place to play. And they eventually moved down to Spartan Stadium, rebranded as San Jose, and for San Jose to have their own sports team to call their own and not be San Francisco's team or Oakland's team, I think went a long way to that ownership and building that community. Like we always say, you got to connect with your community when you're bringing a new team in. And I think that really helped, that branding of San Jose and playing at Spartan Stadium and being their own team. And then they took advantage of it as well. So they did really well at the attendance. But I think for Ken Keegan, this owner, he might have thought, soccer's a slam dunk. This is easy, right? So first thing Ken Keegan needs to do is he's got to hire a staff. So he needs to hire a general manager. So Keegan decides to go to the general manager of San Jose, a gentleman by the name of John Carbray, for some recommendations as a GM. Now, John Carbray, he was a veteran of the West Coast minor league baseball circuit, and he was known, as some people put it, for his Barnum-esque promotional skills of getting people in the door to come watch the events for a variety of entertainment that they would provide. Now, Carbray being a baseball guy, and that was his culture, he recommended another baseball guy to Ken Keegan. And this gentleman was Paul Deese, who is currently working as the president of the National Baseball Congress in Wichita, Kansas. Deese was 36. He had also recently been the head baseball coach at Chapman College, and he had recruited Randy Jones, which is important to our story because at this time, Randy Jones is a Padre. And in the previous Padre season in 1975, he was runner-up for the Cy Young Award, losing out to Tom Seaver. So, Deese has that connection, which they play up. Deese also, by his own admission, knows almost nothing about soccer. He's a baseball guy. He knows a lot about sports administration and organization, to his credit, and he knows how to promote clubs, at least in the baseball circuit. But Deese also saw this as a chance to return to Southern California and a chance to get on the ground floor of something. He also sees the rapid rise of youth soccer around the country, especially in Southern California and San Diego. So Keegan hires him, right? This is his general manager that he wants to focus on. Deese comes in. He starts officially on the 1st of January in 1976. And then he's tasked with like filling out your roster. You got to hire a coach. You got to figure out who your returning players are, because remember, this is not a brand new franchise. It is one that's moving from Baltimore, but they didn't retain any of the front office staff. So they got to hire new front office staff. They got to figure out which players are coming through and get a roster ready for the preseason that's going to be starting up in March. And the NASL, as we said in the last one, had changed some of the roster rules. So now you need to have 6 Americans in your first team roster. And again, they cut the first team rosters down to 16 players. So of those 16 players, 10 can be foreigners, but 6 must be American or Canadian, depending where the team is located. So for the Jaws, they need to have 6 Americans. And there is a reserve squad, and there are some rules there, but the big deal is you need at least 6 Americans. So he needs to worry about that. He has claimed publicly in the media, Deese, he says the Jaws payroll will not be over $100,000. I do not know what the other team's payroll or budget were, like the average team. We have to throw out the Cosmos since they just, signed Pele to a ridiculous contract that made him the highest paid athlete in the world. But for the rest of the teams, not really sure where that fits along with what the San Diego Jaws were looking for. And as Deese said in a couple of newspaper interviews, good players should earn around $10,000 for the season. So remember, it's a 6-month season. But most players could make around $1,000 a month, again, for the 6-month season. And I did a little figuring. That would be about $5,700 a month in today's dollars. So not terrible, not fantastic in terms of professional salaries for a Division I sport, certainly, but certainly not terrible. Deese also decides it's better to play at Aztec Bowl, which has a capacity of about 12,000 people. His thoughts are it's better to have a full stadium and maybe have some demand for tickets than have 15,000 paid attendance in the cavernous San Diego Stadium. So he figures that an average paid attendance of 7,500 people would allow them to break even for the season. So with all that, Deese sets about trying to find a head coach, and they decide as an organization to focus on Derek Trevis. He is a midfielder for the Philadelphia Atoms. He's been there for the last 3 seasons, from 73 to 75. He's made 61 appearances. Derek Trevis is an Englishman, and he had started his career in England playing for clubs like Aston Villa, Colchester United, Walsall, Lincoln City, and Stockport County before coming over to the U.S. to play in the NASL. They eventually do hire Derek Trevis as their head coach. He's going to be a player coach, which is very common at this time in the NASL, especially with small roster sizes, and to help save a little bit of money, you get yourself a player coach. Deese does say that Derek Trevis, the coach, will have full control of the sporting side. Now, luckily, since this team's coming from Baltimore, they're not starting from scratch with players. They do have some players coming over, not the whole roster they had before, because some players go back to where they were outside of the U.S. Maybe they're done playing soccer, or maybe they move on to another team because they've had a better offer. But they do have 9 players that come from the old Boston Comets over to the San Diego Jaws. So at least they have a start. So with their head coach, now they're at 10 total people. Now, the key part, I think, in this is that there are 4 Americans that come over, which is very helpful in the new roster construction. So let's look at the foreigners first. The 5 foreigners who come from the Boston Comets to now play with the San Diego Jaws are forward Keith Aki from Trinidad and Tobago, and he was part of some of those great Howard College soccer teams in the early 70s. Defender Jeff Butler from England, defender John Napier from Northern Ireland, forward Peter Sylvester from England, and midfielder Stan Smith, also from Trinidad and Tobago. As far as the Americans go, you have goalkeeper Alan Mayer, you have defender Lynn Rennery, you have a midfielder Paul Scrudy, and a midfielder Dennis Witt. Other than the goalkeeper Alan Mayer, the other 3 are all, I think they all might have been born overseas and moved here as kids, but went to school here and are considered Americans. And again, having an American goalkeeper, not uncommon in the NASL. That was the one spot that Americans could actually compete in the NASL for a starting spot on the field. All right, so they have those 9 players. They bring them over, and then the first thing that comes up is the NASL draft, and that's in January. Now, they don't have a first-round pick. San Diego Jaws don't, because when they were the Comets, they had traded away that first-round pick for the 1976 draft. So they have to wait till the second round. In the second round, they choose Victor Arbeles. He's a forward from the University of San Francisco, and University of San Francisco had just won the NCAA championship. They also, in round 3, picked Hans Hinchen, a defender from BYU, who's a German. And then in round 4, they picked Bob Poster, a defender out of Claremont College. Now, that's all you had. They only got 3 additional players there to start off with, but the 1976 NASL draft is notable, probably more for something that one of the other teams did that I think really speaks to the time and the time period of the mid-70s and the total disrespect of American soccer players that they could actually compete at this level. So in the 4th round of the 1976 NASL draft, the Chicago Sting decide to pick, rather than a soccer player, out of the colleges or anything else, they instead choose Marilyn Lang, who was the 1975 Playboy Playmate of the Year. So, again, really speaks to 2 things: the time period, because can you imagine if anybody did that in a sports environment today? And there was a lot of flack from the press, from the league, from Playboy magazine even. Like, a lot of people were unhappy about this. It wasn't like everybody, was just okay, but, it just really screams of the old boys club in terms of that. But also, wasting a draft pick on something like that shows a complete and utter disrespect for the players coming out of college at that time, that they could even compete at the NASL level. And before we go on to some of the other stuff filling out the roster, Dylan, I'm going to give you a chance to jump in here if you have any comments.
I don't really know any of these players. In general, not a huge fan of the draft as a concept, and it especially doesn't really work in soccer, I don't think. That Playboy draft thing, that's pretty...
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that even in 1976 that was largely derided, but that's some Donald Trump shit, man. Like, that's yikes. I had never heard that before.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So draft finishes, they pick up 3 more players, and they know a couple of these players that are coming from the Comets are not going to be available till they get much closer to the season or towards the end of preseason, especially the ones who might be over still playing in England and then coming back over. So they pick up those 3 players. In March, they make a trade with San Jose And this is right before the 1976 Indoor Tournament. And they send away Jeff Butler, one of their Englishmen that they had that came over from the Baltimore Comets. And they send him up there and a first-round draft pick, the 1977 first-round draft pick, in exchange for Archie Robustoff, a forward, and Gary St. Clair, a goalkeeper, both Americans. So now they've at least hit their number of Americans. But they also signed 2 more Americans. They signed Philip Cole, a forward, and Shea McFadden, who's from SDSU. He was a Far West All-American. And then they sign a Mexican national from TJ, Jorge Castel, who earned his spot through one of the open tryouts that they had in late February. So that gives them, a team that at least they can start this indoor tournament and some of their preseason with before they go and round out some of the rest of the roster. And we're going to leave it there here for part 2 for who they've picked up. Because in part 3, we're going to look specifically at the indoor tournament and the preseason that the Jaws play to get ready for their April kickoff. And most specifically, next week, we'll be looking at the March 24th match against the Cosmos at Balboa Stadium when Pele came and played in San Diego. All right. Dylan, any comments about any of that before we get our answer to our second trivia question?
I am not surprised, but I didn't know that the people running it were basically just baseball people arrogant enough to think they knew what they were doing, which same but different, right?
Yeah, what amazes me, and I don't know how big of a staff that they actually had, but it just doesn't sound like there are that many people. Maybe this was a lot more common in all professional sports. I don't know, but especially on the soccer side, you had a player coach. You didn't really have a team of assistant coaches or anything. You had you see them in pictures. There's usually a trainer or someone. Some teams had assistant coaches. And then, you got your general manager that kind of runs things. You probably have a few people in the office, but, certainly not to the scale that you see in professional sports nowadays. It's, on the one hand, it's amazing they were able to get their teams up off the ground and play and have a season and be successful. But maybe that's my naivete a little bit about just professional sports in general, compared to what we see today in 2026, where they're just huge organizations. All right, well, are you ready to look at the answer to our trivia question then?
Let's do it, yeah.
Okay, so our question was, this future star of the San Diego Sockers was the leading goal scorer in the 1976 NASL Indoor Soccer Tournament. Name the player. All right, you said you didn't have an idea before. You've seen the name, right?
Never heard of this person, though. Yeah, no.
What? God, Dylan, how long have you been here in San Diego?
Like 6 years, 7 years.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so the answer for those who might be screaming out there that know the answer to this, the answer is Julie V. And Dylan, you're going to have to learn double deuce triple E. We'll explain that a little later. But
sounds good.
Julie V, longtime soccer player, probably regarded as the greatest San Diego soccer player of all time, especially on the indoor side, but was with the team for, not for their entire run in this first incarnation of the Sockers, but pretty much all of it, and still lives in San Diego and has coached locally. But yes, Julie V is the answer to that question. He was the leading scorer. It was his very first NASL Indoor Tournament, He played one season for the LA Aztecs in '75, then got moved to San Jose for the 1976 season. So he ended up being the leading scorer. But eventually, we would see him back in the blue and gold with the San Diego Sockers. And be there for a long, long time. All right. Dylan, any comments before we start rounding things up to head on out of here for this episode?
No, I guess I got some homework to do.
Yes, we will. I'm sure when you see some other people around for Soccer Now who listen to this, they're going to give you some stick for that.
Sure. Well, fair enough.
Yeah, you can claim your recency of being in San Diego, but yes, that is a huge name in San Diego soccer. Okay. Next week, we'll be back with another episode. We'll do part 3 in our San Diego Jaws series, where we focus on when Pele and the Cosmos came for their preseason match. And sorry, got misplaced here in my notes, but also if you like San Diego, if you like soccer, if you like history, we are looking for volunteers to help with our podcast, to help with research, but also help us with the San Diego Soccer History Society. So please feel free to reach out if you are interested. It's best to catch me right now by email till we get some other things set up. You can reach me at john@bigpinedigital.com. So it's on the screen if you're watching this, but if you're listening, john@bigpinedigital.com. All right, Dylan, ready for our final question that we're going to leave everybody with before we sign out here?
Let's do it.
Okay, so for our final question, how many times did Pele play a competitive match in San Diego? All right, we'll leave everyone with that one. We'll answer it on our next episode. We know it's at least one, right? We're doing a whole episode on that preseason match with the San Diego Jaws, but we want to know how many times did Pele come and play in San Diego in a competitive soccer match. All right, Dylan, we'll leave everyone with that. Is there any last things you want to add before we head out?
I guess I would just ask, is there well, I guess maybe this is part of the answer to the question, so maybe I won't ask what constitutes or doesn't competitive, but we can let the people figure that out for themselves, I suppose.
Yeah, we'll let people get a chance to put in what they think are the correct answers for that. As always, you can do it in our community. Give your answer in the community section of our YouTube page. You could send me the answer if you want by email again till we get some other things set up. So john@bigpinedigital.com. And we will see if anybody comes up with the correct answer. So until next week, go do your research on Pele and his appearances in San Diego. And we will see you next time on This Week in San Diego Soccer History. Good night, everyone.